Hello, dear friends. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Matthew 6:12. This was the phrase in the Lord's Prayer that has been successfully deleted. Opinion piece. Forgive us our debts. Is a global Jubilee coming? Everyone wants debt relief, from original sin to original debt. Criticisms of the side loan contract. The light is advancing faster than the darkness. The breakthrough began on 10th September. Austrian School vindicates the gold standard. Those who have sown wheat shall reap wheat. The bank's magical way of creating money. The fractional reserve system creates out of thin air. Debt reaches unbearable levels today. Student loan forgiveness would be the beginning. Earth is one of the most abundant planets in the universe. Prosperity programs were not intended to take this long. Let's start. From original sin to original debt. During the church-led Middle Ages, everyone was told to believe that they had original sin, because Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, and sin passed on to their offspring through no fault on their own. Today, we have original debt. Most people are constantly in debt, and children are born with a burden of debt without having committed any sin. Everyone wants debt relief. This will happen, but without the deep state agenda, as they will not do it within the collapse of the clique. When the global operations and the endgame is over, I hope the people will have the debt relief they have dreamed of. The banking cartels will be gone and the money will be restored to the people of the world, because it is God's will. Behind the scenes, the elites attending the British funeral have been briefed on the coming events, the collapse of their governments and banking systems, which would lead to debt relief. Some 400,000 people attended the Queen's farewell ceremony. The clique that controlled the World Bank and reserves also wants debt relief for Chinese dragon families and Chinese elders. All the citizens of the world want debt relief because it has become too heavy and bothersome. In Spain, debts are subjected to a 5-year statute of limitations if no judicial claim has been received during that period. But there are vulture debt collection companies that try to collect time-barred debts through telephone harassment. In Portugal, this problem doesn't exist because telephone harassment is prohibited by law. Attempting to collect a time-barred debt is a criminal offense under the penal code. No one likes to be in debt unless they are a hard-nosed person. Most debtors are not debtors of their own free will, but through no fault of their own when they become unemployed or their business is ruined. In Spain, the judge Fernando Presencia sentenced in his day the detention in payment of unpaid mortgages by returning only the house, but because of this, his life and career were ruined, and on top of that, the press accused him of being corrupt, which shows the power of some banks. Fractional banking. Fractional reserve banking is a system in which only a fraction of bank deposits are backed by cash and available for withdrawal. This is done to, in theory, expand the economy by freeing up capital for lending. When a bank lends you fiat money out of thin air, all it does is bookkeeping through fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking is a banking system in which banks hold only a fraction of the amount of their customers' deposits and as a reserve, while at the same time having the obligation to return those deposits on demand, for example, in the new loans to their customers. This system is based on the fact that depositors do not usually claim all their deposits at the same time, nor are all lenders lending at the same time, nor are all debtors repaying at the same time. When banks lend out any fraction of the funds received on deposit, or in general, when they extend credit in excess of their deposits, what this allows is that, unlike 100% reserve banking, which usually charges its depositors fractional, reserve banking normally pays interest, resembling investment banking more closely in this respect. This banking system contrasts with the so-called 100% reserve banking. Given its functioning, the system expands the quantity of money in circulation, called the bank multiplier. As a result, a country's monetary aggregate is generally larger than its monetary base. Since the system implies that today's commercial banks operate at risk of insolvency when there is a simultaneous withdrawal of funds, most countries have implemented a system of lender of last resort, which is the state itself, which lends money to banks through central banks. It is this lender of last resort that assumes the risk, shifting business risk to systemic risk. Austrian School. Some Austrian School economists argue that the main business of fractional reserve banking is money creation, generally criticizing this aspect, since they consider that due to an unjustifiable privilege granted by the state to banks, it causes debt and inflation. The debate can be divided into two camps: those who defend free banking with a gold standard and 100% reserves, and those who defend free banking with a gold standard and fractional reserve. The debate arises around its ethical legal nature and its economic effects. The controversy centers on the demand loan contract. The difference arises in the demand loan, which has all the characteristics of the deposit contract, except that the availability of the deposited good according to this contract is the bank's. The debate arises precisely in the validity of the demand loan contract. The debate arises precisely on the validity of this contract and subsequently on the economic consequences if this contract is valid. Both sides match the need for free banking and a return to the gold standard. Furthermore, both sides generally seem to match that in a deposit contract it would be an offense for the bank to take possession of the deposited good, since the ownership of the deposited good remains with the depositor, and both sides seem to match that the loan contract is in alienation of the availability of the goods in favor of the bank. Central banks are institutions whose main purpose is the monopoly of currency, which in turn is given to private banks for distribution to the public. In this way, that central bank assumes ultimate responsibility for the backing of the value of the banknote, whatever the fate of the particular bank from which any individual has acquired it. Financial magic. The mechanism of Mandrake the Magician. For Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from the Jekyll Island, the current monetary system makes money appear out of thin air and hides the debt. That ability is based on a mathematical trick of Greek. When banks lend, they do not physically hand over money, but rather a document to that effect, allocating an amount of the money they hold for that purpose. When banks make these loans, The money originally deposited is kept in the banks. In other words, the system creates money out of nothing, and in turn generates debt. Whoever obtains this document in turn deposits it in the same or another bank, but this new money is now part of the funds that the banks have available for lending, and so on. Consequently, banks' lending is determined not only by the money they hold, but is a multiple limited by the cash ratio of those deposits. Jubilee. A debt jubilee of biblical proportions is approaching, according to Nick Giambruno. 4,000 years ago, the rulers of ancient Babylon discovered a technique to prevent violent revolts. In ancient times, there was a tendency for people to become hopelessly indebted to their creditors. Eventually, they would rise up and cause instability that could threaten the whole system. The rulers of the ancient world recognized this dynamic. Their solution was to enact a generalized debt cancellation, a debt jubilee. Debt jubilees acted as a safety valve for social pressure when there were no other options. The practice was widespread in the ancient world and codified in different civilizations. For example, the book of Leviticus recognizes debt jubilees as the end of a biblical cycle of 49 years. It is 7 year cycles. 7 multiplied for 7. I believe that this ancient practice will make a great comeback as debt reaches unbearable levels today. In fact, partial debt jubilees have already begun, and the consequences for investment will be profound. It is important to note that debt jubilees do not magically create new wealth. They simply redistribute it. They are government decrees that amount to a massive transfer of wealth with winners and losers. The student loan jubilee has set a precedent. The recent student loan forgiveness could be the first stage of a modern debt jubilee of biblical proportions. An action of this size has never occurred during a time of peace. The immediate and deferred costs of a student loan forgiveness are estimated to be at least $590 billion. I don't think it will be long before we see a credit card jubilee, an auto loan jubilee, or a mortgage jubilee. Reset news. Wall Street investors are bracing for a harsh winter. Stressed out households run out for money. Eurozone recession looks almost unavoidable, economists say. Brussels seeks powers to intervene in the market in the event of a supply crisis. Germany and the Netherlands have more job vacancies than unemployed. Germany will take control of 3 Russian refineries, but it could cost it dearly. Alternative to unipolarism. The summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is to present an alternative to Western hegemony. Maduro assures that Venezuela is ready to supply the world with oil. Putin offers Russian fertilizers blocked in Europe to needy countries. Elon Musk announces that the Starlink internet network is available on all continents. A Tesla car locks its owner out until he pays more than $20,000 for a new battery. Hurricane Fiona knocks out power across Puerto Rico. US troops will defend Taiwan in the event of a military conflict with China. Japan orders evacuation of nearly 8.4 million people due to Typhoon Namadol. Opinions. Gerald Celente writes, "Nobody talks about peace, and don't you dare to talk about peace. We are being driven to war by mentally ill people. All they want is control." Simon Parkes believes that, in quotes, the banks could close, accounts would be frozen, and there would be no online payments. Would this be the event planned for 24th September? The supposed bank shutdown would last 2 to 10 days, and the extent would depend on the opposition on the other side. Pufness Office Weekly Report by Susan. There are all sorts of false flags and serious events being discussed, and the black hats know they have to do this to compensate for being caught in a trap. They know they have been found out, and that is causing a lot of consternation. We can say this: are you any closer? No, it won't be the next week. It would be too soon for these information games to play out around the world. Now all these funds are frozen until the proper machinations are carried out. Just wait, hang out, and handle everything that comes your way carefully. The people who set up the prosperity programs did not intend for it to take this long for the money to get into the hands of needy humankind. Jesus taught that a neighbor was anyone in need. A person may seem culturally, politically, or socially distant, but everyone is close enough to receive our friendship, care, connection, help, and support. Jesus expanded the boundaries of our common neighborhood to include all of God's children. Planetary Change. Planetary Shift by Peter B. Mayer. A major change in the timeline of Earth has begun despite the usual public complaints of nothing changing, nothing getting better, chaos increasing, and so many other stories from those who have neither eyes to see nor ears to hear. The breakthrough has begun now, around the 10th of this month, September. This makes the year 2022 more than great, especially for those who have done their homework to assist and are involved in the building of our new Earth. Those who have sown wheat will reap wheat, but those who have sown tares will reap their own seed. Earth is one of the most abundant planets in the universe. There is more than enough gold-covered money on Earth to make everyone a millionaire, without debt of any kind or nature. This enormous change brings with it a great transformation in the destiny of humankind. It brings visible and unmistakable feelings of happiness. People begin to feel better, while those who are not awake will not know why. Solar Flare by Michael Ladd and the Pleiadians. A few days ago, just after the largest solar flare in modern history blew out the back of the sun, the forces of light say that the vibrational resonance of the Earth has increased significantly and has moved closer and closer to the fifth dimension. The incredible cosmic explosion of a few days ago moved the entire cosmos and ejected high-frequency plasma in all directions for millions of kilometers. This plasma appeared in the Earth's atmosphere in the form of beautiful translucent rainbow-shaped clouds that could be seen all over the world during the last few days. Coincidentally, this solar megastorm knocked out several Schumann tracking stations on Earth, and much of the sensitive measuring equipment at the Tomsk station was destroyed. A major changing of the guard on the surface is set to be underway. Bear in mind that the main solar flare is still to come and could happen any day now. If the historic back flare of a few days ago had been directed directly towards the Earth, it would have been enough to do the job. All eyes are on the same monstrous sunspot that caused the super X-rays, as it could be aimed at Earth in a few days. The big change. The great shift is unavoidable. It cannot be stopped at this time. It has gained so much momentum that those who were the powers and are no longer the powers, and even they, realize that they have lost control. They are still holding on. They continue to act like cornered animals, and they are likely to continue to resist. But as you continue to raise the frequency, and you continue to be the catalyst for this raising of frequencies, raising your consciousness and bringing back the light and the love to this planet, as you continue to do that, those who were the powers and are no longer the future powers, and you continue to move back into the shadow from whence they came. Not you, they. But before you do that, as you are seeing, you have reached the higher frequencies and you cannot manage there. They cannot manage there. That is why they are seeing the great turmoil and the great experiences that are happening now, that are bringing about an awakening of the population everywhere. Why they are seen doing ridiculous things? Some would even call them stupid actions that attract attention, whereas before they were hidden from that attention. Victory of the light. The light has won by aurora ray. We have reached a time when the light is moving faster than the darkness. This means that our victory is unavoidable. The light has already won. Humankind will ascend and Earth will once again become a full-fledged planet of the Galactic Federation. The dark forces are no match for love. The power of love is far greater than the power of hate. We will unite as one and show the dark forces that they do not stand a change against us. They do not stand a chance, no change, a chance against an opportunity against us. You are being watched. You are being protected. You have been given full consciousness and the power to create your own reality. There is a divine plan in place. It's time for the dark forces to be defeated once and for all. The light has been working tirelessly to uncover the darkness on Earth and expose it for what it really is, evil. The dark forces have nowhere left to run or hide. Their time is over. The light will prevail because of you. Never lose hope. Never lose faith in the possibility of change, and never forget that you are loved unconditionally by the Creator, by all sentient beings in the universe, and most importantly, by yourself. Trust yourself. Your intuition will guide you in the right direction at all times. Listen to it every day, in every situation, in every moment of your life. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.